Aloha and welcome back. Just a quick video on the current state of affairs, which is pure insanity, collective insanity, and an update on my videos on YouTube's assault, not just on me, but everybody telling the truth, and this is a good sign. But I'll get back to that. The policies in the Middle East is obvious to those of us who are awake. It would seem as if it's pure insanity, completely nonsensical, as if America never learns its lesson. I hear so-called experts say that crap all the time. And the important thing to know here, as I've said many, many times, the powers that be, those who control the financial supply, the monetary system, they, the bankers, have every interest in war. They always have. It's not just the money that they make from war, which of course they make tons of money, but they have all the money, so it's not really about the money. It's about power. And divide and rule is the absolute imperative. The paradigm of divide and rule is 100% essential to the maintenance of this tyranny. So war is most valuable to those running the world, and the incentive for them to foster, create, incite never-ending wars is undeniable. And it's really stunning when you look at the amount of so-called experts out there who don't say this. It's elementary, quite frankly. I feel like I'm insulting the audience and myself to some degree that I have to repeat this kind of stuff, but there is a need to repeat it. And, you know, voices like mine, although are not completely non-existent, there are a lot. In fact, I want to say major props and respect to especially all the younger people out there who are speaking the way it needs to be said, and they're not backing down, and they're shutting down a lot of your YouTube channels, and major respect. It seems like the older crowd, not all of us, but you know, the older crowd aren't getting this for some reason. Never mind the fact that there's tons of infiltration, controlled opposition and whatnot. But so we understand that those who rule the world have a major incentive to foster never-ending war. Really, that should be very well understood at this point. So the policy in the Middle East is really a fantastic example of the divide and rule paradigm. The whole point of what's going on in the Middle East right now is to sow the seeds of sectarian hatred, to divide all of the societies in the Middle East, all of the nations of the Middle East. Oded Yonan's The Strategy for Israel in the 1980s. If you haven't read that, read it. You need to know if you care about what's happening in the Middle East. So Syria, it's a basket case, but that's okay from the powers that be. It doesn't really matter that it looks crazy. It is pure insanity and psychopathy. It's completely nuts. You've got America, the unwanted guest who never intends to leave in Syria, completely blatantly violating international law, which I'm sick of even, you know, hoping for the institutions that are supposed to govern law, the United Nations, the International Criminal Court, the Rome Statute, and all these things that are supposed to bind nations to international law are obviously completely useless. We're going to have to do something to make it useful. But as it is right now, it's useless for the people, but very useful for the tyrants. So why isn't Tony Blair and George Bush rotting away in a prison cell for war crimes and crimes against humanity in Iraq? Because the system is there to protect them, and international law is a joke. And that's the way it is. So we'd have to do something to change that circumstance. But right now, the policies in the Middle East are just disgusting, insane, and as they're meant to be. That's the point of it. I mean, there's a lot of details in there that people get caught up in. The pipeline that was supposed to go through Syria, the Russians, and you know, its opponents were vying for that. The West was vying for control of that. I mean, you know, these are interesting and important points, and I'm not denying their legitimacy. However, divide and rule is the most important factor in everything, and we see that on steroids in the Middle East. The whole point is to try and get Bashar al-Assad out of there, and you'd have to be absent a few brain cells, to say the least, to not understand the very predictable consequences of what will happen if Bashar al-Assad is removed from power right now. or over the last several years. I mean, you really have to be stupid not to know that if he was gone, that would create a power vacuum. And that power vacuum will be filled by somebody. And the intention is, by the powers that be, to fill it with their boys, which is Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra Front and ISIS and all the like. Those are our boys. You know, if you don't know this, I don't know what to say, man. You know, I mean, whatever. I'm not really speaking to you then. You know, I'm speaking to those that understand these very basic principles. So, you know, Bashar al-Assad, love him or hate him, like the Syrian people, you know, the Syrian people know the situation very well. They know damn well if Bashar al-Assad were to go, a whole lot of Christians would be, you know, decapitated, already have been. There'd be a whole lot more of that, I can assure you. So if you're a Christian, you're a complete idiot if you don't understand the tremendous value that Bashar al-Assad has to the Christian population and other minority populations within Syria. So the whole policy in that region, you've got the United States in a confrontation with Turkey, so NATO allies now, like, it's so discombobulated and so completely insane that it's hard to keep track of the latest insanity. None of it seems to make sense unless you understand that chaos is good and that Syria is an essential stepping stone to Iran, which is the essential to kickstart full-scale World War III. And let's get back to the motivation and incentive of the bankers to have war. And now they need a third world war. Again, I've been saying this for years. For sure, the powers that be need a third world war or a fake alien invasion, something along those lines, to unite people for their bidding, for their cause. As we always do, like brainless idiots, the American people were waving the frickin' flag while they were sending off American sons and daughters to fight for Israel. And what was the result of that? Aside from 1 million, probably closer to 2 million dead Iraqis, millions of refugees, millions of orphans. This spilled into Europe and is causing all sorts of problems there. All of that is not by accident. Not at all. So what we see is the bankers instituting policy through all of their puppets. Of course, the governments of the West are all virtually controlled by the bankers. Literally, they're controlled. As is academia, as is the mainstream media, as is Hollywood, as is the police, as are the military. All of it controlled by the same monolithic entity. John F. Kennedy talked about that. So, World War III is essential for the powers that be. Really, because too many people are waking up. And regardless of the path that we've walked, as we wake up, we all come to the same place. And that place of sanity requires that we change this world, or we die trying. And it doesn't mean everybody has to put their life on the line, but certainly some of us do. And, you know, if you're not willing, if none of us are willing to put our lives on the line, and we're just going to go ahead and be bystanders and, like, watch this as it plays out, well, okay, but, you know, shame on us, especially if you have kids. Shame. Shame, shame. I don't expect or anticipate or think it's even wise for everybody to play daredevil and put their life on the line. You know, it's not for everybody. And, you know, the only people that really are meant to do that kind of stuff are people who just can't live with themselves if they don't. You know, I'm one of them. And I don't really give a shit. You know, as much as I value my life, and I do, don't make any mistake about that. I value life. I'll never be committing suicide, so I won't be killing anybody than killing myself either. So none of that shit is possible with me. I value life very much, but I'm also a spiritual person, and I understand that this process that we experience as spiritual beings is one in which I think is really defined by whether we approach this beautiful blessing called life with love or with fear. It really comes down to that. And I love this world too much. And even my enemies, I have empathy for. I'm not going to say that I love the Rothschilds or, you know, the bankster families that are destroying this world, the pedophiles and the child killers, ritualistic child killers, you know, the Satanists, you know, the Jewish supremacist Talmudic elements, strains, you know, any of these people. I feel empathy for them because if they ever were human, they lost their humanity, the most precious gift we have. So we are in amazing times right now. And I say again that it's this generation that's going to define the future of all humanity. We see with the U.S. moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, an obviously intentionally provocative act intended to incite, which it's done. And of course, Palestinians are dying as a result of this, par for the course. And when that embassy move occurs in May, we can expect more problems, which is what they want. You know, don't look at this like, oh, Trump is making a mistake as if he makes any decision. God, that's a whole, I could keep talking about Trump, but whatever. I've talked about it before. I'm sure I'll do it again in future. This move, you know, ordered by the powers that be via Trump to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem is part of this whole design for a full-scale Third World War. Make no mistake. Syria is the stepping stone to Iran, which is the stepping stone for full-scale World War III. Okay, so I know a lot of you get this, but hopefully those of you who don't get it will take something from what I've just said there. Lastly, what I want to talk about is the assault YouTube has committed to me and many others. Just this I've got a list here of the videos that they have banned, removed over the last couple of years. The video I did not long ago in Dominica, the Jewish supremacist Talmudic pedophile bankster cultist video initially was removed by YouTube. Hate speech and all that crap. I appealed it, as I always do, and they actually put it back, which I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. You know, I mean, whatever. YouTube put it back. They actually did the right thing in this particular case. Why, I don't know. But I think they must have realized their mistake because last week or the week before, they suspended, you know, the ability to like it, to comment on it, and disabled some of the features. So clearly they don't want people seeing how much they like the video because the likes to dislikes is hugely in favor of likes. And the comments are overwhelmingly positive. You know, a lot of people saying, you know, thank you for saying what needs to be said. You know, talking about those you're not meant to criticize. You know, we can criticize any group we want, barring one. And you know which one that is. If you don't know which one that is, then you've obviously never criticized them. If you criticize them, you'll figure out who they are very fast. So that one was disabled. My video that I did, I lecture in Berkeley in 2016, that was taken down as soon as it was approaching like 100,000 views within a month or so. That was not good. So they had to hate speech me there. And, you know, I got a strike for that. So they removed that way back when. My 9/11 film that I produced while I was volunteering basically at the People's Voice, where Richie Allen happened to be getting paid substantial money. But anyway, that's a whole nother subject. And this 9/11 film, I have to say, I mean, I put a huge amount of effort into that. It's solid, man. It's solid. I go right where the truth lies, man. You know, Israel, Israeli Mossad, 100% actively carried out that operation along with traitors in the U.S. government and military intelligence services. In politics. The bottom line is, you know, I say what obviously needs to be said. You know, only Israelis were arrested on the day, Larry Silverstein, Frank Lowy. Anyway, they removed that video too. Hate speech again. They also removed my 9/11 interview with Christopher Bolin, which I was doing with the People's Voice. They didn't actually allow him in the country. The UK wouldn't let him in when I was living in London doing that. And then YouTube has shut that down. They didn't like that interview either, even though we did it over Skype. The Sandy Hook video I did 6 years ago was removed a week or two ago again as well, which would fit perfectly in line with our most recent school shooting. And boy, oh boy, I have stopped looking at and dissecting all the false flags, potential false flags. There's so many people doing that now. I don't really think there's a need for me to do it. And quite frankly, I'm bored with it. You know, I'm sorry. The pattern has been laid, man, okay? If you don't understand false flags, how they work, the first question that should be asked with everything, obviously, is who stands to gain? who's in a position to carry it out? These are very important questions, and the evidence always reveals the same cast of characters almost always, so I can't be bothered to get into all the details, and so I'm not recommending myself as an analyst for the latest false flag. A lot of people out there doing a really good job with that, and much respect to those of you who are doing that. I made a film for the Samuni family, the kids who while I was in Gaza, I made this lovely film where the Samuni kids were basically professing their love for the players of Barcelona, Messi and the rest, and inviting them to visit Gaza. And wouldn't you know it, bastards took that down. Copyright notice. What a bunch of heartless bastards. Must have been Barcelona Football Club. Of course, whatever. They're owned by the powers that be, so there's no real surprise there. But, copyright took that down. What a bunch of bastards. I did a French TV interview just as the invasion of the Iraq occurred. They took that down. Several videos about Dale Farm. I lived in Dale Farm. Most of you won't know anything about that, but for those of you in the UK, this was basically ethnic cleansing of a gypsy, traveler population right in Essex County in England. You won't be able to see many of the videos. They've taken them down. And then just last week, my BBC expose, the first part of my two-part series, they've globally banned that. So, wow, I'm honored. But for those of you who wanted to see part one of that, and all of these other films that I mentioned, I haven't put the BBC one up yet, but I'll try and do that in the next couple of days if you haven't seen it. DTube, there'll be the address below. Again, I'm going to encourage people to go ahead and download my videos and re-upload them. Some of you have done that. Thank you so very much. And I recommend doing that for your other favorite producers, presenters. Man, there's a lot of good people out there. Cover their backs, really. Seriously, I'm not kidding, man. I mean, part of the reason why I feel like I don't have to make as many videos anymore is because I see so much great content out there and people talking about subjects that just was not talked about not long ago. And I feel definitely a very strong sense of worth in part of what I've done by pushing the boundaries out there, saying the Jew word. Do I hate Jews? No. Is this about hate speech? No. Do I have a problem with supremacists? Yes. Of all stripes, mostly by American supremacist brothers and sisters who I've spoken out about on every different level, but I never get shut down for that. That's okay. And obviously, if you want to rubbish and defame and misrepresent Islam, you can do that too. But the system plays all sorts of games here. So I just saw an article about, some immigrant, refugee immigrant, Middle Eastern migrant, whatever the hell you want to call them, raping and getting off in a technicality in Europe. And they'll do this kind of stuff. They allow a lot of stuff that's really favorable to Muslims and sort of sugarcoats the crimes of these fake Muslims that we created. And they manipulate the right wing into thinking, oh, the Muslims are, this, that, and the other. Give me a break, man. Stop falling for that crap. Alex Jones going to Trump. Remember that sickening interview with Trump before he was president? Sycophantic Alex Jones sucking some serious you-know-what in a so-called interview where they're talking about the dancing Arabs on 9/11 and how Alex Jones, quote, said to Trump, you've been vindicated for exposing the dancing Arabs. What are you talking about? It's the dancing Israelis. They literally said that, and it blew my mind. Anyway, you can say that kind of crap about Muslims, which is total BS, when we know it's not disputable that Jewish supremacists, agents of Mossad included, were sent to New York and were there to film the event. They had foreknowledge of the event and were filming it. Never mind the Israeli Jewish supremacist Mossad agents included who were caught with explosives in their vans on the day, or the video footage of Jewish supremacist Mossad agents in WTC towers, one or two, I forget which one, the North Tower, the South Tower, with blasting caps. And never mind Larry Silverstein and Frank Lowy buying the lease to the building that's filled with asbestos and so on. the bottom line is the powers that be are very desperate, so they're shutting down YouTube channels, and I would expect that mine will be shut down. They've already got one strike on me. They shut down another video, banned it globally based on copyright. That's the BBC. That BBC program was vetted by legal minds at Press TV. I had serious in-depth conversations with their legal representatives at Press TV to make sure that we would not get shut down, or that Press TV would not be hit with copyright infringement litigation when I produced this BBC program. We made sure to check all the boxes and fulfill all our obligations. The program was about the BBC. So how are we not going to use BBC footage when we're doing an expose of the BBC? We're using footage to expose the BBC for their criminal behavior, and they get us for copyright infringement on YouTube. So how do you show the BBC if you can't use their footage? What do you have to talk about everything they do and not actually use the evidence, which is what that program did. So this is a good sign. And while I've got, 61,000 subscribers and climbing without having put a whole lot of effort into my YouTube channel, there's a lot of people out there who appreciate what I'm saying, and I thank you honestly, and many of you have supported me financially as well. I ain't rich by any stretch, but hey, I've been supported, and I really do appreciate that. If I get shut down, I hope that you'll move on over to DTube. I also have a Vimeo channel as well. Some of you mentioned other options. I may look at those too, but for now it's going to be DTube. So I recommend you start moving over there. Look for me there and move over there. If YouTube wants to shut me down, mark my words, I'll work that much harder and I'll build something even more powerful. Because that's the effect that kind of crap has on me. Whenever anybody says to me, you can't do it, or, you're this, you're that, or, just tries to intimidate or bully, all that does is make me stronger. Always. Every time. Every time. So thank you, if that's what YouTube wants to do. And thank you to everyone who sincerely has supported me in my work. And I the comments, I do read comments in the YouTube channel, and I'm not on social media a lot, to be honest, compared to most, not at all. But I do try and take time to read comments and at least see what people are saying, get feedback that's valuable to improve things. And it's overwhelmingly positive, and I really do want to thank all of you. Hey man, it's really up to us. We want a better world. I mean, I'm going to keep repeating this, and especially this year with the launch of World Citizen coming up, contrary to what my enemies and the slanderers and libelous people say, coming this year. Can't wait for you to look at it. Can't wait for you to participate in it. Because for me, it all comes down to whether or not we do what we're capable of doing, and World Citizen is all about that. Talk is cheap, man. Let's do it. Stop making excuses. And I said this in a previous video as well. If you want to be all cynical and bitch and moan and complain about, nobody cares, whatever, man. I'm so sick of that. I'm more sick of that than the apathetic people, actually. The apathetic people or whatever, they're in la la land. But the cynical people, I did a video on this previously. The cynic is the tyrant's best friend. The cynic will tell you you'll never be able to achieve it. The world's always been this way. It'll always be that way. Got to take care of yourself, man. All of this crap. That's what the cynic is for, and the tyrants love them. They hate people who can imagine a better world. And who can only not imagine it, who can imagine it, but will work for it. And that's who I'm looking for. And I know you're out there. And my plan requires 10 million of you. I know there's billions. The only question is, am I going to be successful in reaching you? I hope so. I believe so. Either way, I'm going to do my best. So, thanks again to everybody. I hope you appreciate this video. I'm going to do more videos again. I've been saying that. I will keep doing more. And I may be doing some videos like this without any visuals and whatnot. So give me feedback. Are you okay with me just talking to the camera? I think it gets kind of old looking at somebody for too long. But, whatever. I'll say my piece and try and improve as best I can. Take care now. Aloha.